Bueno, pues buenas tardes y bienvenidos todos a este primer Café Con del día de hoy, que como ya sabéis es un evento que celebramos para poder tener una charla un poco más tranquila, más distendida, con los directores que vienen, directoras, a vernos en cada ocasión, en cada festival. Y bueno, pues hoy tenemos dos directoras. Tenemos a Laura Samani, aquí a mi izquierda, que viene con su película Piccolo, Corpo, que forma parte de la sección Historias Extraordinarias, que como sabéis es una sección que se ocupa sobre todo de historias con interés humano, historias que llegan de manera como muy directa al corazón, por así decirlo, del espectador. Y luego tenemos también a Ola Jankowska, que viene con Anatomía, que pertenece a la sección Revoluciones Permanentes, que es una sección en la que primamos mucho el riesgo formal y las propuestas, digamos, como más radicales, más valientes del cine contemporáneo. Entonces, bueno, creo que algo que une a las dos películas también es el hecho de dos personajes, dos mujeres, que cada una pues sigue como un camino a lo largo de toda la película buscando pues algún tipo de redención o de catarsis. Y bueno, a mí me gustaría empezar quizá hablando con Laura, preguntándole de dónde sale esa inspiración de esa historia, bueno, que está situada a principios del 1900, también tiene un tono anacrónico y se trata, pues, de alguna manera, creo yo, que de un viaje en busca de cierta redención del dolor por la pérdida de su bebé recién nacido. Así que bueno, Laura, me gustaría preguntarte, para empezar, ¿de dónde sale? No sé si debería hablar en inglés. Bueno, no lo sé. ¿Qué hago? ¿Qué hago? ¿Qué hago? ¿Qué hago? Sí, sí. Bueno, a mí me gustaría empezar preguntándote por cuál fue la inspiración para esta historia, porque es, claro, en este siglo XXI que vivimos, en el que la religión cada vez está menos presente, la idea de una madre que tenga que seguir ese camino tan duro para poder bautizar a su hijo y poder hacerle descansar en paz, pues es algo que bueno, nos pilla un poco lejos, aunque luego es muy fácil también empatizar con el personaje.
I'm missing the mic, so I'm going to use yours. Hi, everyone. Thank you for the question. So I heard about these real pilgrimages that used to take place in my own region. I come from northeast Italy, Friuli Venezia Giulia, which is on the border both with Slovenia and Austria. And as everywhere in Italy, we're really Catholic in a way, at least talking about ground zero culture. I'm not Catholic, even though I've been raised as one. So I've been told about these pilgrimages that used to take place, where, as you said, where the babies were born, stillborn, you couldn't baptize them, so their souls would be damned to limbo forever. And the pilgrimages used to happen back in like 16th century, starting from that moment on. And one sanctuary still exists in my region, is still there, even though it lost its original purpose, because limbo doesn't exist anymore since 2007. So the Pope decided the limbo doesn't exist anymore. And I got blown away by this story, even though I not properly connected to the story of the main character, so to the story about the miscarriage of the baby. But I definitely know what loss is and what mourning means in many different ways, and so this is why I decided to explore.
Conectar con esas emociones que largamente han sido postergadas.
I think actually my character is, let's say, coming to the place where she can mourn, but I think the story itself wasn't so much about mourning for me. It's just one of the emotions that were maybe pushed aside by the character, but I think my starting point wasn't really about that relationship and just that things are ending in the film. I think it is a film about ending, but I wouldn't say it's a film about mourning. I think it's a film that explores the fact that, like, maybe more philosophically, like what it means that things end and how impossible it feels to us, and how we can process the fact that things were and they're not anymore, and people were and they're not anymore, and love was and isn't anymore. So in a way, my character mourns, but I think it's, for me, it wasn't the heart of the story.
Bueno, sobre el tema de las películas, ciertamente tenemos como dos enfoques formales bastante diferentes. Bueno, en el caso de Piccolo Corpo, para empezar, hay una construcción temporal muy interesante. Lo que os decía antes, está la historia sobre el papel, está situada en el año 1900, pero sí que es cierto que hay como cierta atemporalidad, y también en el propio trato del paisaje, de la luz, de todo el recorrido que hace este personaje, pues está presente como esa idea, ¿no?, de situar la historia en un punto que tampoco nos da ancla a lo histórico, sino que más bien conecte emocionalmente, creo yo. Y bueno, le quería preguntar a Laura por ese tratamiento formal de la película.
The director of photography, who is Mitya Lichen, is also the camera operator, so it was pretty easy to have just one interlocutor, in a way, which is something pretty unusual in Italy. Usually we have different roles for everything. And we immediately decided to go handheld camera. So we decided to go, like, to travel with the characters, to feel the steepness of the ground and to feel the time passing by in a real way, so with long sequences. And everything was pretty natural once we set it these two simple rules. In a way, we regret the fact that we didn't use the Steadicam here and there, because the ground was really steep and not regular at all. But we weren't really dogmatic in a way. So these were just the only two rules we had in mind. Yeah, and then of course, agreeing with what the weather was giving us in a way. So for example, since we've been shooting in continuity, so the very first scene of the film is the very first scene that we shot, and the last one is the last that we shot. And this is really precious when you shoot a film, and it's not really common, but it was necessary because of the geography of the territory we were shooting in. We've been not lucky, but lucky enough at the same time, because we had to stop 3 times the shooting. We were shooting during the pandemic, and we would never had the snow if the pandemic didn't happen, because we were supposed to shoot in springtime. Yeah.
Sí, sí, además de si habéis visto la película, realmente el elemento de que esté la nieve al final, creo que es algo que ayuda bastante, o que acompaña bastante a la historia, ¿no? De llegar al momento en el que, bueno, no quiero desvelarle el final a nadie, ¿no?, pero digamos que concluye de una manera inesperada también esa búsqueda de duelo, esa búsqueda de penar la tristeza por la pérdida del bebé, ¿no? Y me imagino que también, o sea, esto que dices del orden temporal a la hora de rodar, tiene también su influencia en la propia interpretación de la actriz principal, que es como la persona que lleva el peso de manera bastante evidente en la película, ¿no? The weather and also the order in which you shoot the film.
Because I missed the last part of the question. If the weather influenced what we were shooting in a way.
Yeah, the order of the shooting in the interpretation of the actress, the performance.
Yes, sorry, because I was kind of listening to her and to you at the same time. Yes, it definitely influenced it. It totally influenced it, because we were growing with. They were growing with the project. I was growing with the project, and the project was growing with us. So yeah, it was definitely like the best option to shoot in that way. And we bonded all together. And it's funny, let's say, because we had to stop the shooting right in the moment where everything changes in the film. So because of the pandemic. And so when we went back in November, 8 months later in shooting again, the second season, because it's like a TV series, the process of shooting was like a TV series more than a film. When we went back, we were so angry and so hungry as well to shoot again. And Agatha, like the main character, was feeling exactly the same hunger than us. So it was like overlapping. We kind of missed the road, like, is the character feeling it or is us that we're feeling it? And yeah.
Sí, bueno, sobre el arco de las interpretaciones, en la película de Ola también hay como un arco bastante interesante, en el sentido de que la actriz protagonista, digamos que se mantiene muy contenida durante toda la película. Es un estado que creo que como espectador te influencia también, porque te da la impresión de que es de una persona a la que le cuesta mucho como entrar en contacto con sus emociones. Pero bueno, eso es algo que hacia el final se rompe completamente y como que todo sale, y quería saber un poco cómo trabajó ella con la actriz, ¿no? Como qué directrices o qué referencias o cómo se trató un poco el tema de la actuación con la protagonista, que en este caso también lleva como el peso de la película totalmente sobre sus hombros.
Yeah, I will answer this, but I just wanted to say that our shoot was also stopped, and we also shot in 3 parts.
Yeah, I was about
and
to add
thanks
that.
to this, we had the summer. So it's like the shared experience of the pandemic films, I guess. So the way I worked with the actors, we spent a lot of time together. We're kind of neighbors, almost like the same as with my cinematographer, in fact. And also I did a lot of auditions for different parts. And she took part in many of them. So I think we never really discussed the character background or any of this. We didn't talk so much about the character and the arc. And my main interest, I just wanted her to be in those situations. I didn't want her to act anything, to show anything. I just wanted her to just be in those situations in an almost documentary way, where there's no need to transfer, to explain the emotion to the audience. And I think she really succeeded in this. And I think through the time we did, like, when I did the rehearsals with the actors, we didn't again like try scenes, or we didn't really talk much about them. We more tried to create their relationships in the past, or spend time together, listen to music, or dance together. So it was a very bodily process. I didn't believe so much that I didn't want this intellectual process for her to happen, that she thinks what she should to be, you know. So I think, and also the time that we shot for a whole year almost in parts, I think really also allowed her to go through this journey with the film. And I think it was also an important time in her life of change. And I think this film reflected this. So I think, to be honest, I didn't direct her much on set. I just told her the kind of interpretation direction, but I didn't. She just was there, and she gradually understood more and more. I just didn't have to. At the end, at the final part of the film, I didn't have to say almost anything to her. And the most emotional part, actually, it's interesting because in that part she meets her mother, and who is played by a young mother of hers. And I also had this idea that I wanted this person to be the young mother, but also the older mother. And I asked her own mother to be to come, who's not an actress. And it was very interesting because I think even her in the end it's not like this in the film, but I think the presence of the mother there in that moment really changed how she was in the scene. And I think just the fact that her mother came from some place, completely detached from the film world, you know, and was there with us in this scenery, I think really brought something very deep in her.
O sea que fue como una, uy, perdón, fue como una estrategia llevar a su madre de alguna manera.
I thought she would be in the film, but then, I mean, I still loved it somehow that this younger mother was turning into the older mother, but as you know, the film is already so difficult to grasp the plot that I didn't want to add another confusion to it. So it was a difficult decision. But no, I didn't realize. I mean, it was a strategy in the way that I wanted this whole convention to change. That the emotion would be really raw and not coming from the story, you know, but just something that is deeper than that.
Bueno, hay una cosa que a mí me llamó mucho la atención de la película de Laura, que esto ya no sé si es ignorancia mía o algo, pero me llamó mucho la atención el idioma que se habla, cómo se habla en esa película, porque me resultó como muy difícil como relacionarlo incluso con el italiano a veces. Me parecía portugués por momentos y quería preguntarle, tengo mucha curiosidad por el tema lingüístico de la peli.
Because actually it's not Italian, but there are 3 different dialects. So one is Venetian dialect, I would say. So it's something that comes from the lagoon part, and it's really close to my dialect. And the second one is the Friulano, which is a language, by the way, because it has its own grammar, written grammar. It's not a proper dialect. And then there is Carnico, which is a variation of Friulano, and it's something that comes, it's spoken up on the mountains on the border with Austria. And then there is an episode in Slovenian, in pure Slovenian. And that's the reason is because Italian is an invented language. So Italian has been invented, like perfectionated in a way, in 1861 because of it was necessary to unify the country. So it was a political reason, a political matter. And during fascism, it was even more stronger, this attitude. So it was forbidden to speak in dialect, especially in my country. So not in my country, in my own region, because we got Slavic influences. So of course you couldn't speak in that dialect. So for me, it was a political matter to use a dialect instead of the official language. Not only because back in the time, so it started, as you said, in 1901, no one would speak in Italian. So no one, even though it was already official. But because even today, a lot of people in the, like in the flatland, but also in the mountains, they don't think in Italian. They translate to Italian. And yeah, for me, it was really important to preserve it. And just to give an example, there is a moment in the film where there is a bandit that calls Agatha Frutte. And this is a termine friulano, it's a Friulan term. That means it's something that you use to someone who is younger than you. And you can call your baby Frutte or Frutte, or someone that is just younger than you. And the basic translation is fruit, because he or her is the fruit of his/her parents. And in Italian it's figlio or figlia, and it doesn't have the same meaning. So it's a richness that it's really vital to me.
Sí, estaba pensando como en español se dice también el fruto de tu vientre, que también es como muy religioso, ¿no? Que es una curiosa. Y bueno, también es verdad que esos cambios en el lenguaje a lo largo del camino yo creo que refuerzan la idea de la distancia recorrida, ¿no? Que es gente que está viajando a pie y sin embargo sientes como claramente los cambios en el paisaje, los cambios en el habla, o sea, realmente el viaje es más viaje también, ¿no? Por esa revisión un poco identitaria del camino, ¿no?
And I think, I don't know what about Spanish and all the variations, because I don't speak, as you notice, but I think that the grain of the language is really connected to the ground of the territory, in a way. So at least in my region, the more north you go, so the more stony is the situation, the more edgy is the situation, more the hardest it goes the language as well. So if you're on the seaside, there are the waves, the beach, the sand, everything is smooth, not on the mountains. So yes, it definitely gives the feeling of it, but also there are not many kilometers like from the south to the north in my region. It's like 100 or something, but it changes a lot. So the mountains are really close to the sea. Visit Friuli, Venezia, Giulia.
Bueno, sí, porque es cierto que aunque las dos son historias que tienen mucho que ver como con lo personal y con lo íntimo, sí que no se pueden como extraer de los territorios de los que suceden, en tu caso como por cosas de las que estamos hablando, por el tema de la religión y todo lo que, bueno, lo que eso conlleva. Y en el caso de la película de Ola, yo creo que también está como primero el sentimiento de Polonia como nación, un poco quizás la carga histórica y lo que eso ha dejado en la gente y quizá también tu propia condición de estar un poco separada, ¿no? Como la personaje principal del país, ¿no? Y de poder verlo, ayer lo hablábamos en el coloquio, ¿no? De cómo inevitablemente, aunque estés lejos, eso cala también profundamente en ti.
Yes, for sure. I think it's so hard to answer those questions after the other person because you're so interested in exploring that what the other said, and then you're like, oh, my film. But yes, for sure. I mean, I think detachment, yes, but for me. For sure, the city where the story takes place, and yes, it's a city that the character left and comes back to. But also, I think the city reflects, I think, her own what she's going through and sort of her own. It's like the city is also in a bit of an identity crisis, I think, and it's a city that was. Completely destroyed after the war and is rebuilding itself and reconstructing and it's still going through this process of rewriting the history completely, sort of forgetting the old. And I think like the character is in a perhaps in a similar position that is trying, and I also try to revive those memories of the place and of her. In the film, and so I think for me, even it wasn't so much about detachment, although I think it's hard to be attached to a place that's changing all the time, but and that also lost its roots, physical, material roots, but I think for sure I'm interested in in how we are connected to this place, also in ways that we don't realize, and how we inherit the memories of our parents and grandparents, and that live on in us, whether we're aware of it or not, or whether we want it or not.
Bueno, si alguien tiene una pregunta en cualquier momento, que levante su manita y nada, y podemos seguir conversando. Pero bueno, yo quería decir también sobre la película de Ola, hablando también del tema de las revoluciones permanentes, de la sección en la que está, y de lo creativa que es formalmente la película, que emplea muchos diferentes formatos. Tiene vídeo doméstico, material de archivo, tiene una cámara térmica. Pero bueno, con respecto a la forma, yo le quería preguntar algo en concreto, y es que la película está como dividida en capítulos, y capítulos que se relacionan con la idea del título, que es Anatomía. Entonces le quería preguntar por esa estructura de la película y sobre la relación con la anatomía precisamente de todos esos capítulos.
I knew that the film would be divided into those chapters pretty much from the very beginning, because I wanted to create this very fragmentary feeling, and each chapter indeed is entitled with a body part, because I was interested in this, like, in the fact that we are our lives are hardly ever linear right now, and that we're composed of those little fragments of little stories that don't always match. And that's how I think that idea came for, and the same for the different formats that are used and different textures, that I wanted to create this feeling of collage, that because I feel like maybe that reflects on how we are constructed now.
Sí. Bueno, no sé si tenéis alguna pregunta, quizá algunos habéis visto la película, quizá algunos no. Pero bueno, me gustaría quizá, si no tenéis preguntas, aprovechar para ponerlas a ellas en un pequeño compromiso, que es, si tuvierais que invitar a la gente a ver vuestra película, ¿qué es lo que pensáis que es más atractivo o qué es lo que más puede conectar? ¿Qué diríais?
We have sales agent to do that, luckily. Well, it's an artistic matter to invite people to watch your films, in my opinion, because you don't want to feel alone with this obsession. So you want to obsess other people with what you've been sleeping with and walking with for, in my case, 5 years. I don't know yours, but more or less. So it's like, it's something. And yeah, you need a community. And according to that, so it's not about the topic of the films, but it's about the process that you need to free yourself to free the others. So please don't let us alone. This would be something that I would say.
Bueno, en realidad Laura ha dicho algo también muy importante que creo que muchas veces no se ve al ver una película, y que es el hecho de estar 5 años con un proyecto para sacarlo adelante también, para rodarlo y para que finalmente llegue a nosotros, ¿no? Y que es un trabajo en equipo y un trabajo de mucha perseverancia. Y bueno, está muy bien ponerlo en valor, creo. Hola.
I thought that you've forgotten about me. I hoped. No, I can really actually relate to this, and I'm glad that you said it, Laura, because it's true. It's of course it's the egoistic part. It's true. I think I don't know. I don't know if my film is attractive, you know, in a way, but I think it's a film that can. I'm very much interested in this kind of in those films that are instead of making you escape from what you're feeling or escape into another world and escape to a story, they kind of give some space for reconnecting with what you feel, and it's and I hope that this film could be an opportunity for this. So if that attracts you, yeah, I'd be very happy to meet you at the screening.
Bueno, y simplemente decir también que lo que ha dicho Ola me parece que también hay que traerlo adelante, y es que, bueno, estamos también muy acostumbrados quizá al puro entretenimiento, a Netflix, a todo este tipo de plataformas, y sí que es verdad que es interesante sentarse en una película y no simplemente dejarse hacer, sino también ser espectadores pensantes, que yo creo que es algo que tenemos bastante presente en el festival. Y bueno, la película de Ola además creo que es muy interesante y es pues algo que realmente, no sé, creo que trae adelante el valor del cine como creación artística, y bueno, creo que es algo que defendemos y que seguiremos defendiendo. Así que bueno, si no queréis decir nada, dejo un espacio de silencio incómodo. y bueno, pues ya se acabó el silencio incómodo. Pero bueno, os invito a ver la película y os invito también a escribir sobre ella si venís de medios o a contarla y a que corráis la voz. Y bueno, gracias Ola y gracias Laura.